We're going to get started. Stevie, are we good? Ready, Mike?
Ready?
Okay, good evening. It's 8:15 PM on Monday, December 8th, 2025. I'd like to call to order the Village of Brookfield Committee of the whole meeting. Mike, we have a roll call for the committee meeting, please?
Trustee Ketchmark.
Here.
Trustee Whitehead.
Here.
Trustee Hendricks.
Here.
Trustee Naramatsu.
Here.
Trustee Gilhooly.
Here.
Trustee Kaluzny.
Here.
President Garvey.
Here. Thank you. Okay, we have two items up for discussion tonight. This first is a discussion of the KLOA Incorporated Parking Study for Downtown. I'm going to turn it over to Village Manager Tim Weiberg to do a brief introduction, and then we'll have our consultant, who's been sitting here patiently this evening, make presentations.
He's learned a lot about parking tonight. Yeah, real quick, it's a two-part presentation. First, Javier from KLOA is going to summarize his parking study, which was actually conducted earlier in the spring. Due to some scheduling issues, we didn't get around to it till today. He's going to focus on, he's not really differentiating between our downtown street parking that's available for shoppers, commuters, and so forth. He's just looking at the overall parking inventory, how it's used, and perhaps how we could utilize it a little bit better. We took advantage as well, and Noah is going to piggyback on that discussion and specifically talk about, because so much of our parking in the downtown area along Brookfield Avenue, along Burlington, behind this building, is just commuter parking. And it's kind of, I know the public perception is one of the things I'm sure Javier's going to talk about. There's a perception that all of this parking is solely for commuters. And so I think we need to just be a little more critical in how we're looking at this. We have this inventory of quite a bit of commuter parking that's really underutilized or non-utilized in some cases. And we need to do, I think, a more proactive, critical job of looking at that. And so Noah's going to present a series of recommendations that will hopefully be in concert with what Javier is going to present about the overall parking situation. So with that said, Javier, you could go there, you could sit here, you could have the clicker. Okay.
Oh, sorry. Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to present our findings, and I do apologize. It should have happened much sooner, but a lot of conflicts, so I really wanted to apologize, first of all. Just a little bit of an introduction. So my name is Javier Milan. I'm a principal of KLOA with a little bit over 30 years of experience, 30 years and 1 month. I have a Bachelor's of Science in Civil Engineering with a concentration in Traffic and Transportation Engineering from Marquette University. I'm also the adjunct traffic engineer for the Village of Lombard for the past 22 years, and I'm a member of the Institute of Transportation Engineers. A little bit of about KLOA. It was founded in 1995, and we provide transportation and parking consulting services to the public and private sectors. Practice areas include multimodal transportation planning, transit-oriented development plans, traffic operation analysis, traffic impact and pedestrian safety studies, as well as parking demand studies. Some of our sample public sector clients include the Village of Villa Park, Village of Lombard, Village of Wheeling, and Village of Bolingbrook. So having said that, we met with staff, and based on discussions with the Village of Brookfield, and per their direction, the study area was divided into a north and south section, with the BNSF train tracks being the dividing line. The north section is basically bounded by Grant Avenue to the north, Salt Creek to the east, Brookfield Avenue to the south, and Sunnyside Avenue to the west. While the south section is bounded by Burlington Avenue to the north, Grove Avenue to the east, Southview Avenue to the south, and Sunny Avenue to the west. So based on the surveys that we conducted, the Brookfield downtown area has approximately 556 on-street parking spaces and 271 private parking lot spaces for a total of approximately 827 parking spaces. Once we have that, we wanted to then truly conduct the survey and see what exactly is the demand every hour. And we did this, occupancy surveys on Friday, April 11th, and Saturday, April 12th, and this was done before the construction of Grand every hour from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. And as you will see in the following tables, something that kept on repeating, the highest demand tend to occur in the evening hours between 6 and 9 p.m. And certainly this is representative of the restaurants that you have in the area. And I think you guys have been very successful with those restaurants because they truly have people in there. And I went there after I conducted the survey. I went to Paisans, am I right? I decided, hey, besides just looking at it as an engineer, go as a customer, take a look at it, So it was nice. So anyway, as you can see, and I did this on purpose, you can see I highlighted in yellow how at night it starts actually increasing. And again, this is the total demand. This is on street as well as the private lots. So that was Friday, north section. Then this is Saturday, the north section once again. That's when it actually starts peaking. And then we have the south section Friday as well as Saturday. So once I have that in that table, I decided, you know what, we need to look at this in the overall section or downtown and the average of the north and the south section. What is it? What is it telling me? So basically, the north and the south section have about a 45 to 55% occupancy, and that's average. And this one here, you can see this is the north section. And this is basically showing, for whatever reason it's showing me only, I apologize, there should be another chart in there. But in essence, what you have for the north section, the peak parking demand, and I'm gonna stay with the nighttime because that's the heavy one. It occurred at 9 p.m. with 287 of the 526 parking spaces in the north section occupied. On Saturday, the nighttime one occurred at 7 p.m. with 310 of the 526 occupied. And then we go this one. It has the 4 bar charts. This is the south section. So you can see it's a little bit less even than the one on the north, but again, it still peaks at night. And then on a weekday, the Friday, the evening, it occurred at 8 p.m. with 137 out of 301 spaces. And then at night, it was at 8 p.m. with 199 spaces occupied out of those 301. So even though, and I said it, 45 to 50% occupancy, it appears that there is plenty of parking. Notwithstanding this, we actually found that there were a few segments of on-street parking that actually had a parking utilization of 95% or 100%, meaning that it was fully occupied. So just to give you a couple of examples in there, Friday, the south section, the south side of Burlington Avenue from Prairie, or between Prairie and Forest Avenue from 4 to 8 p.m., that section was 100% occupied. The east side of Prairie Avenue between North and the South Alley, there's 2 alleys in there, it was 100% occupied, 9 a.m., 12 to 3, 5 p.m., and 9 p.m. Then Saturday, the north section, north side of Fairview Avenue between Grand Boulevard and Sunnyside. At 1 p.m., it was 99% occupied. At 7 p.m., 100%. So I'm giving you some of the examples. There are certain sections that actually do have a high occupancy. So based on those findings, we came up with some recommendations, which I really would like to go over them a little bit more detail. So the north section on-street parking along Grand Boulevard is the area with the highest parking demand. Yet, the parking service revealed that the on-street parking along Brookfield Avenue is very underutilized in the evenings and on the weekends. Typically, downtown patrons and business owners can perceive there to be a parking problem if they are unable to park in front or within close proximity or view of their destination. So the village can actually potentially be able to alleviate this perception and achieve greater utilization of the on-street parking along Brookfield Avenue by publicizing better parking information and improving the visibility and accessibility of these spaces. The village, we think, should also implement wayfinding guidance to the available on-street parking, and 2 specific ways of addressing this could be via a digital downtown public parking map and via the development of an implementation of a wayfinding sign system. With regards to that digital downtown public parking map that I mentioned, we noted that the village provides various maps on its website. However, there are no maps specifically for the downtown area during normal, regular occasions. It was always for the special events where you could park. I was trying to find something that could actually guide me rather than me just driving and trying to look at the signs, and I didn't see anything like that. So that's a missed opportunity to actually have something in the website. That map could be publicized through multiple media platforms, including websites, social media, and the Brookfield Chamber of Commerce. As it pertains to the wayfinding sign system that I mentioned, we noticed there is inconsistent signage for the public parking within the Brookfield downtown area. And while there are banners within the downtown area indicating to patrons and motorists that they are downtown, I didn't find any advanced signs that actually any signs that were telling me I am approaching downtown. I always felt like the downtown just popped on me without me knowing that I'm getting there. And this is based on me driving the area and comparing it to other downtowns in which I see something that alerts me ahead, hey, downtown is coming. It's like, oh, you might get excited, or you might know, like, hey, I'm getting there. It's just something to bring a little bit more attention to the downtown and not having the motorists just drive, oh, all of a sudden I'm here, So the village should prepare a wayfinding master plan that would establish a uniform and comprehensive system of directional parking signs and parking trailblazing signs, as well as identified appropriate locations to install these signs. Based on our observations, emphasis should be placed on parking guidance from Brookfield Avenue, Prairie Avenue, and Grand Boulevard. Another recommendation that we had, and Tim actually mentioned this, is better utilization of certain parking areas. As I mentioned, Brookfield Avenue west of Grand Boulevard, it's heavily underutilized, and it actually offers approximately 80+ parking spaces that span slightly west of our study area, and the majority of these parking spaces are actually signed for commuter parking permit from 5:30 a.m. to 2 p.m. However, the commuter parking demand does not warrant the need for all those spaces. As such, it is our recommendation to reassign approximately 71 of those spaces and sign them as 4-hour parking from 8 to 6 p.m. What do we achieve by doing this? I spoke to several villages and I asked, what is the sweet spot in terms of the parking time? Is it 2 hours or is it 4 hours? And the 4 villages that I actually spoke to said the 4 hour is the better one, because you allow the time for, let's say you have a group of people that want to get together, and maybe it's a bunch of girls that want to get their hair done and their nails, and then they want to eat lunch. If they only have the 2 hours, they feel like, oh, I can't, I need to move the car. It's like, give them the chance to actually explore your downtown area. And I think this would be an ideal place to provide that 4 hour. The spaces along Burlington Avenue, close to the Irish Time, should be, in our opinion, signed as follows. There are 4 existing spaces on the north side of Burlington that are signed for 15 minutes. And we believe those should be adjusted to indicate this restriction from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. After 6 p.m., maybe those spaces could be signed for 2-hour parking, or 4 hour if somebody wants to be there a little bit longer. But they would do like the dual purpose, service. You have the 15 minutes, somebody who wants to pick up somebody, and after the whole demand of the train goes down, it can serve, additional land use, just like Irish Time. Along the, and I'm so sorry, along the circular drive by the station, additional 15-minute parking spaces could actually be striped in there, and that allows people to pick up or drop off their loved ones. And then the parking spaces on the west side of Prairie Avenue, immediately north of Brookfield Avenue, I think they should be signed for 2-hour parking. So in addition to these changes, we believe the village needs to provide also better enforcement of the on-street parking utilization. And what do I mean by that? Very often, we actually notice that parking spaces on the north side of Fairview Avenue were regularly utilized as a staging area for the auto repair shop, and regularly occupying those spaces for much longer than the 2 or 4 hour time limit that is assigned for. Lastly, we also think the village could work alongside the businesses in the downtown area to develop a valet plan, utilizing 1 or 2 spaces in front of their businesses, and this is any business that might be interested in doing this, and then valet those vehicles to the underutilized parking along Brookfield and Burlington Avenue. All in all, I have to say this, the downtown area has sufficient parking to accommodate the actual parking demand. However, it needs better reallocation, signage, and utilization of those on-tap areas. Hopefully, discovers what we put in that big report with all those bars. And if you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them, Tim, unless you want me to add something else. No, I mean, I just covered that, you know. I just wanted to say last, and this is anecdotal, and I mentioned this to Levy. I came in here earlier, and I drove the downtown area. Kudos to you guys. That looks beautiful. That looks very, very inviting. So Mhm. Yes, yes. So we also looked at the new developments, and let me grab my report over there. We also looked at the new developments, and one of the things that Tim actually asked me to look at is our, and when I say our, I'm speaking like I'm with you guys,
We appreciate that.
are our parking requirements correct, or are they good? Are they bad? Are they are they in line? So you guys basically have in here what we call a TOD, Transit Oriented Development Area. You have certainly the advantage of the train station right there, and we actually looked at what the code says. So, for example, code requires 1.25 spaces per unit for the residential. And we wanted to look at how does that compare to the Institute of Transportation Engineers parking generation manual, and also how it compares to other communities. So just to let you know, we looked at IT, short of the Institute of Transportation Engineers, and the peak parking ratio or average is 1.14 spaces per unit, which is very much in line with what you guys require, 1.25. We also looked at other communities such as Clarendon Hills, Downers Grove, LaGrange, and quite a few in Downers Grove because we do a lot of work in there, and their parking ratio is 1.23 spaces per unit. So once again, your code, it's actually very good and very much in line with the 1.25. My experience, stay with that. It works, and it's very, very common in other communities, and it follows what ITE has.
Can you comment, because we've been, the Planning Commission and Village Board, we're updating our zoning code right now. And we are at the very beginning stages we have a draft of a zoning code that's gonna be started at the Planning Commission. And one of the issues that Camiros, you probably know about Camiros, is the planning consultant doing our zoning code review, had put forth the idea, the concept of maybe the village, and their kind of approach is any village should really remove parking requirements from commercial properties, from residential properties, let the private market decide that. Their kind of philosophy is they won't get, why does the village need to be weighing the pros and the cons and being the bad guys? We grant parking variations all the time. A private development will not get proper financing, will not be a successful development from an economic standpoint unless they have sufficient parking, so let them deal with it. Well, after what I've been reading about is our state, the state legislator, I guess, has passed a bill that is removing the ability for municipalities to require any type of parking, and I'm looking for you to correct me if I'm wrong, for any type of residential or commercial project. And I believe they've adopted that, and it's at the governor's desk, and I'm just curious what your thoughts are.
Certainly that is something that is picking up traction, there's no doubt about it. I'm going to give you my personal, opinion, professional, personal. I think that can work in certain areas. In other areas, it could be a little bit of a detriment, I'm sorry. And what do I mean by that? Well, something like that might work, let's say, in Chicago. It might not work the farther away you get from, let's say, train or the city. Having said that, one of the midpoints is instead of having a minimum requirement, is to have a maximum. It's kind of like going the other way around. And that has worked in others. And what do I mean by a maximum? Right now you have a minimum of 1.25 spaces, if you have 10 units, you would have, sorry, I cannot do math, 12 spaces, So let's say that you actually do it the other way around and it's just a maximum of 6 spaces, controlling the amount of vehicles, like what you said. One of the things that typical of TODs is basically unbundling the parking from the rent. And I'm strictly talking about apartments in this case. You're trying to basically tell your potential tenant, listen, parking is not part of the rent, so if you want parking, it's extra, and we only allowed you one space. Well, I have 2 cars. Well, this is not your place for you. That's how you actually control how many vehicles, you would have. So that is something that could certainly be explored. Yes, I mean, everything that you said, you're right on the money. And there is the school of thought that maybe instead of going to one extreme, it's just finding that happy medium, which I said, providing parking maximums rather than the minimums, like what we said, the 1.25. So the village certainly can have the option of exploring that and saying, we don't want to go above this, trying to control that. And that would be that happy medium. Does that make sense? And I'm sorry, I'm talking.
No, and I know Tim's trying to generate discussion here, and I appreciate that. I guess I'll open it up to questions. There's a few things, I think a good starting point is the downtown parking recommendations. And I understand that this study is somewhat of a snapshot of the current conditions and, the recommendation about better enforcement and utilization of the on-street parking at Fairview. And, you mentioned the auto repair shop on Fairview. I mean, I think there's, between the proposed development that's about to go for a final plan development, the triangle spot, and I believe there's a purchaser for Rodriguez Auto Repair, so there's a different use going in there. I mean, is that what we're talking? I mean, I assume the parking spaces, that says parking spaces are regularly utilized as a staging area for the auto repair shop, just reducing the available parking for other businesses. As far as we know, the purchase of the auto body business is going through, or the auto repair business is going through, and there's a new use going in there? Libby, is that correct, or? Potentially. So that, the changing situation there, I mean, I think that recommendation was made, and it's a kind of a snapshot in time. But based on recent information, we believe that use may be moving out of there, and there'll be a different use with different parking requirements. I mean, it doesn't prevent us from going forward. And the other things, you've mentioned wayfinding signs, earlier tonight. I don't know if you were here for the Cycle Brookfield presentation.
I was.
Wayfinding signs is something this board has talked about for a long time, so that's part of everything from our Energize Ogden plan to development other plans. So I think that's something that we could definitely talk about implementing and how we implement, and the reallocation of some of the spaces. I just, we've talked about also how, one of the perceived problems, and I think it goes beyond a perceived problem, is that some of the business owners that complain that their customers can't park in front of their businesses on Grand Boulevard and Prairie, we've come to discover that a lot of times the spaces are taken up by their employees. And we've tried to encourage, incentivize, however you want to say it, to say have your employees, that we've freed up spaces or pointed out that spaces that are available a little bit farther distance where your employees might be there all day and you want to save your prime spots for your customers. We talked about the spaces on Brookfield Avenue, basically, west of Prairie. There's a lot of spaces there, but the farther away you get from the business district, the less desirable they are. But, is there a theory that you allocate certain spaces as employee parking and limit the ones closer to the, Prairie Avenue, maybe put the time limit so it's more customer-based, that type of thing?
Yes, and I do agree with you on that. And ideally, exactly what you said, that incentive, should be, I don't want to say enhanced, but they should keep on pushing their employees, because that not only happens here, almost every development that we work on, whether it's a restaurant or retail, you tend to have those employees that take away the primo parking spaces. And that hurts their business, because exactly the way that you explained it, the customer feels like, I don't have a parking space close enough, and I don't want to park over there.
Right.
So yes, you're absolutely right. If there is a way to further incentivize that, to just move those and provide relief, along Grand Avenue, and I'm using that one, it's that would be ideal.
I think we talked about I mean, it may be almost, requirement and an enforcement issue that we limit the time, to the parking along some of those areas, that where an employee would be, if their shift is longer than the time that's allowed for the ideal customer, then maybe, I guess it's a learning curve, it's everything else, it's educating the businesses, was something we've been kind of dealing with, going forward, and maybe it's just further education. And I know the business owners want to help, but they got to help us out in that way too, so.
Some municipalities, and I'll say this, they do have, or they allocate certain spaces for decals, like employee only, because like what you said, you might have a shift longer than the 4 hours that I was talking about. Your shift might be 6 hours. So some municipalities do actually do that and allocate some spaces, again, farther away, and you don't have to worry about, I need to get out of the restaurant, I need to move my car, and I need to come back to my job, And I think you guys have enough parking or surplus of parking along the tracks, that, and I know I created a little figure, but we can work on creating some additional pockets of employee parking if that's something the village would like to, explore.
And, I mean, my perception is, I mean, it's available. I don't even know that we need decals. It's just getting them to use it as opposed to taking the more convenient spot in front of the business. I mean,
Correct.
I'm open to suggestions about how to make that happen, because we could give you a decal and say these spaces down Brookfield Avenue along the tracks, along the north side of the tracks are available for you to park during your shifts, and employees and owners of the businesses. It's just, how do we enforce that and get them to use
That's what I'm
that?
saying. Now it becomes an enforcement. How do we do it?
Right. No, that's,
Or how do we have the business owner enforcing that on his employees?
Well, and I wonder how much of it is that those spaces are perceived as commuter parking, and so you're not gonna go and try to park there for your 8-hour shift
Right.
if it's assumed that you have to have a commuter parking pass for that.
So maybe education more. I mean, I know staff has tried to do that. Staff has met with some of the businesses, informed them that these spaces are available, and encouraged them for their employees, but maybe a further education campaign and signage, maybe?
The signage too, because again, me personally, I was confused, and I parked my car and I'm just reading it. I'm trying to make sure that I'm not going to get a ticket or toll, so.
And
Okay.
I wonder, how are we managing the parking enforcement right now when we do have the 2-hour spots?
Sure. Well, he's okay. He could speak for, I mean, he's loud enough. We could. I know that.
Evening, everyone. So essentially, sorry, I was taking notes too. Our time parking in the Grand Business District is primarily driven by complaint. It's a complaint-driven system currently. It's not to say that there aren't checks at all, particularly when it is heavily utilized over the nights and weekends. We will take more self-directed action, but at the current time, it is primarily complaint-driven.
Just to zoom out a little bit, to me, I think the biggest takeaway from the study is that we do have ample parking available, not just to support the current businesses, but potentially support these developments that may be on the way. And we have a serious perception versus reality situation. And I think this happens often in transportation and traffic safety. It's, for example, I appreciate how the police department takes a data-focused approach to traffic safety, right? When they're looking at speeding, they're out there with the speed gun and making observations and making decisions based on that. So when we as a board are thinking about parking and approving new developments, I think public input is important, but we really need to consider this data to have the full picture. So I think this study could be a really useful resource for us moving forward, and appreciate the approach that the consultant took at staff direction. And also just to keep in mind that, limited parking and congestion and activity in a downtown area is in some ways what we want to see, right? Like if
You're
you think
right.
about the places you like to visit, whether they be in the suburbs or a neighborhood in Chicago, on almost every case I think of, that destination also has parking and congestion issues, right? So that doesn't mean we shouldn't try to address and alleviate parking concerns with things like wayfinding, but the goal should not be to bring down those utilization rates. In fact, the goal should be to bring up those utilization rates, because that's a sign of a vibrant downtown where people want to go and where people want to visit. And I think that's where all of us want to be. This is probably the issue I've heard most about in the year that I've joined the board, parking. When are you guys going to build the parking garage downtown? And I think that is not capturing the reality of the situation, the data that we have, and the goal that I think everybody, including the community members, want in terms of a more livable and active and thriving downtown. So thank you for this work, and I look forward to working with staff to implement these recommendations.
I'm excited about the digital map idea because I think that's something that then every business and restaurant could post,
Correct.
on their website of like, here's where you park when you come visit us. I think that's hard to do now, where like you could go here or here or here and having to list it all. But I think it's not like going in a parking garage where it's like a green light over it. Like,
Correct.
there's this many spaces available. That seems too techy. But showing like where they are available during the day versus where they're available at night and like 2 times of day scenarios seems like something that could be useful.
And I mean, there's recommendations, and some of them could be quicker than others in moving forward, and, I mean, always looking ahead and planning ahead. I mean, some of the key areas we're focusing on, there could be some major changes in development as quick as next year. I mean, with the, if things come to fruition and there's a large development going on the Triangle property, the construction of that and the development of that is going to temporarily affect parking and transportation and everything in that area. And if there's a new use at the auto body in that same immediate area, that's gonna change the uses. I'm not saying that we have to freeze and not do anything because there's gonna be changes, but that immediate area of the Triangle and the auto repair shop could look a lot different at the end of next construction season, going forward.
You hope so.
And, exactly, and so we can maybe phase in and, maybe pause in certain areas or plan for that construction, development, temporary restrictions, temporary ideas there, going forward. And also, we know that we may be, doing some major improvements on Prairie, and I don't know if, is 27 the earliest we be redoing Prairie? So 2027, I mean, we can plan for, counting on the spaces along Prairie, all the way from 31st to the tracks, but Prairie's gonna be torn up for all of 27 or a large part of 27. So again, that's just something to keep in mind. We could put restrictions in place, but no, they might be in effect for 2026 and then 2027. That's gonna be another hard impact on the businesses there, but we need to improve that area and the parking there. So I think we gotta match their phasing in of recommendations along with what we know is gonna, in terms of happening in terms of development. But I think the wayfinding sign recommendation and some of the, recommendations on the north side or south side of the tracks by Burlington and Prairie, we can kind of go forward with some of those or discuss those more. And I'll, take more input from the board, but maybe we can bring some of these forward as staff feels we can have an appropriate committee session with the recommendation from economic development staff, police department, as to we can implement some of these going forward gradually. I know we're gonna probably want to have, universal wayfinding sign design type things, so what happens on Ogden Avenue should happen over here also, so our wayfinding signs become familiar, and the identifying the business district in general. I mean, that's a point very well taken. I mean, we know our business district is, but as you approach it and everything else.
We do have the sign on Grand Boulevard,
do have the
which was
Village
not in
of-
place when you were there, so that's a big improvement, yeah.
Yeah. And again, I'm not trying to like, what is,
No, we appreciate the input.
what did I see? What can I offer you guys?
we-
It's good to have an
I know.
outsider's perspective.
Tim's like, you see the sign?
Can I just,
Yeah.
can I just
we-
add one thing? That
Yeah, absolutely.
I like the creativity and the idea of talking to the businesses about coming up with a joint valet service.
Correct.
How many times, even if you live kind of close by and maybe you don't feel like walking, you're coming around and looking for parking, or you just want to hop in and out.
And again, it's not something that you want to force to every business, but, you guys can talk to the business and see who wants to participate.
It could just be an
This is
option.
very similar, and I'll give you two examples. Villa Park, they have almost the same situation. There's no train anymore. It's just the path, but they have parking on the north side and the south side, and it's underutilized. So they're using that as a staging area for valet, which is one of, because I did the Villa Park parking study downtown, so I said, this applies here too. I mean, they can actually use that. And you mentioned something that I invite you guys to actually go to the city of Wheaton. They do have that headache that you were talking about, and they're thriving because they actually said, you know what, we want these businesses to actually thrive. Do they have a little bit of like the traffic jam? Yeah, but all those businesses are doing fine. And the parking structure is being utilized because they have one. They don't have as many on-street parking spaces as you guys, but it's been utilized to the maximum. And it's been thriving. I live in Lombard, and guess what? I tend to go to Wheaton quite a bit to actually enjoy the restaurants because I like it. It's alive. And I walk, and I might go to the ice cream store, and then after that, I might go somewhere else. So yes, you're absolutely right on that. You want that.
If I could just ask, hopping on President Garvey's point, like, we have all downtowns and communities change and dynamics change, and this needs to be a fluid process. How often would you recommend, bearing in mind that hopefully we will have some significant developments happening in our downtown the next couple of years, how often do you think a community should revisit a parking study like this?
I have seen in the past, they typically revise them or revisit, like you said, what they have done about every 5 to 8 years. That's like the nice, sweet spot, because like you said, like new development might be coming in. It might take a little bit of time to actually for the development to be approved, to be refined before it gets built, and then take some time to actually see, okay, how is that impacting the parking, because it takes some time for it to stabilize, like when you bring a new restaurant, the first month, that restaurant is peaking really high, and then all of a sudden it drops down. So the same thing with the parking. So I would say about every 5 years, if you have the funds and the option to actually do it because something big happened or something is happening, it is well worth it. And it doesn't have to be the whole thing. Maybe you can actually bring it down and concentrate into a specific area. So, and then you can actually see how it changed from 5 years ago to now. I mean, has it been stable, or did it completely go crazy, and why it went crazy? I mean, what happened? So.
And again, I appreciate the work, and I mean, this is like, this presentation tonight, and then we got to talk about implementing how we move things forward. I mean, and maybe I think we should share this, the presentation or study online, because I think this will generate some public comment or public input, because, and here, I respect your methodology, I don't doubt it, I believe it, but and I told Tim this anecdotally, I had to make dinner last night, so I went to Burger Antics to pick up food at 7:15 on a Sunday night, and the closest parking space I could get was in front of Brennan's Massage, all the way at the
other.
and that was the only. I went around the block once, and that was the only spot of it at 7 o'clock on a Sunday night. And I was very happy to have to walk because of my position and everything else like this.
Yeah.
But I don't doubt your numbers, but I saw some of and maybe it's different times, different things and stuff like this, or maybe it's cold, people aren't as walking as much, but there's different times and different, where it does happen.
No, and I agree, and it's a snapshot, like you said, Friday and Saturday, and we discussed that. I even asked him, do you want Friday? And he said, yeah, I mean, we want to see that. Yeah. And if you notice, at first I said 6 to 9. Right. There's quite a few segments that are 100%, which is exactly what happened to you. You couldn't find the spot where you wanted to find it.
And as we go home tonight, I mean, Monday, a lot of the restaurants and bars on Grand Boulevard close Monday. That's the night they have off. I mean, there'll be plenty of spaces there on Monday night, but it's
I knew you were going to say this, and so I read the report very carefully, and here, understand what he's saying is, on Grand Boulevard, the area for parking also includes Brookfield Avenue, and so there's plenty of parking available. Even from Brookfield Avenue to Burger Annex is not a very long walk, but the perception that you have, and you and I have talked about this, is that there's a parking shortage downtown. Well, from the consultant standpoint, there's not at all. There's parking if you're willing to walk a block or so. We have ample public parking.
And I think that goes to Trustee Hendrick's point of advertising and making that. Obviously, I'm aware that there's spaces along, but who else is aware that those spaces are available and things like this? So it's an education effort. It's a wayfinding sign. It's the publication, the digital maps and things. You gave us some really good things to think about. So let's bring these things forward and, one by one, groups, that type with some specific recommendations and options to do those going forward. So.
And I know we're going to talk about the commuter parking, but there's also the lots, I think, that appear to be underutilized at times. So in terms of wayfinding, making people aware that those lots are available.
That's a good point. For example, the lot over on Prairie, the east side of Prairie, south of Irish Times.
By the funeral home and.
Yeah, the funeral home, yes. I was just there a couple weeks ago, and my husband could not figure out, it's village parking, we could not figure out where was the village
I had the
parking
same
and
fear.
Where in that lot?
Same thing happened to me, and Tim was the one who mentioned to me that that's a public lot. I didn't know.
Yeah, there's some like,
I'm
there's some
like,
like
do I
temporary
leave my car
signage.
there or no?
Yeah.
You know?
And-
Correct.
And how many of those spaces are?
Yeah.
Is it the whole thing?
Yeah.
We
But
couldn't tell. Yeah.
People see off-street parking and they think it's private, like by default, right? So we
Right.
need to do our work to make them aware if it is public.
I parked in those spots the other day and I was like, look at me. I know this is public parking.
Well, we know you and your parking issues, Katie.
That's on the next agenda.
Playing it fast.
Any other questions or comments right now? I mean, we got some work to go forward. I mean, this was a big help. I thank you for
Thank
all the
you.
time on it, and
Thank you.
we'll talk about sharing the report online, and obviously we'll reach out to you as we need more input on this.
Absolutely.
But I
And we'll be more than happy to help, so.
And I, we truly appreciate your opinion as someone, and I mean, when you made your comments about that the downtown came up, and we get that. We live here, we drive by here every day, and sometimes you don't see, the things that other people see, because we're, we get used to it and stuff. So we appreciate your input on it, so.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank you
Thank
for
you very
taking the
much.
time to
Thank
be
you.
here tonight. Okay, last but not least, we have some recommended amendments to the commuter parking ordinance. Noah Reif, our management analyst, has spent quite a bit of time on this, doing research about neighboring committees and a little bit of history about our commuter rates and how they've been adjusted, when they've been adjusted last, and some recommendations. So very detailed information in our committee item from Noah, but I'm going to turn it over to Noah for the presentation.
Thank you. Just want to reiterate, the presentation we just had from KLOA was focused on comprehensively the parking in our downtown. My focus is on commuter in our downtown, but as well as Congress Park and the Hollywood stations. Some recommendations that I'm proposing are modeled with what KLOA presented, and we will discuss that later. And as we go through the presentation, we will discuss daily, monthly, and quarterly parking for each station. Keep in mind, Hollywood does not have any daily parking per se, but we will discuss all types per station. Next slide, please. Sorry, I got the clicker. I got the clicker. That's my job. I got it. All right, so just an agenda for this presentation, an update to our discussion we had at the budget workshop, discussion on daily and non-daily parking information, Congress Park Station specifically, and then our proposals. So what makes Brookfield unique is having Congress Station and having the express trains. With that brings a lot of regional draw, which we'll discuss a little bit later. And for a Hollywood Station, that's served heavily by non-residents and those attending RB. So because of this, because of the demand that it presents, we recommend additional amendments to the fee schedule for those two stations to kind of capture demand. So the proposed amendments would be for monthly be $55 for residents, $65 for non-residents, and for quarterly $160 for residents and $190 for non-residents. This is an amendment from what was previously discussed, but wanted to present to the board as an option.
Does the board want, if you want to give input as we go along, or, I mean, we can come back to it at the end. I mean, it's kind of free flowing here, so whatever you want.
Just one question, Noah, do we have data on the number of monthly and quarterly permits that we're currently issuing?
Yes, so there are about 238 monthly and 255 quarterly, or the inverse. Our data that we collect does not show specifically where people are buying them,
So that's village-wide, yeah.
but that's the village-wide number we have. That number was from 2024.
Can I just ask, is the recommendation that the monthly and quarterly pass at all three stations is the same for resident and non-resident, or would it differ?
So the rates would be the same at Hollywood and Congress. And then for the downtown station, it would be $45 and $55 for non-resident. So it would be that distinction, but resident pays one rate. So it's two rates, one rate just for downtown station, and then one rate for Hollywood and Congress Park.
But the recommendation is that Congress Park and Hollywood have higher monthly and for resident and non-resident, correct?
Yes.
And that recommendation, I mean, Congress Park is obviously in some ways more desirable and seems to attract more maybe non-residents or non-Brookfield residents, but I mean, that because of the high demand of the express trains, is that the thought that it's more desirable, so?
Yeah, general philosophy is try to look at this like a little bit more like a business. You're a higher demand. We have, as Noah and I think Kyle said, we have much higher utilization at Congress Park and high demand at the zoo stop at Hollywood. So maybe we should be increasing the price there a bit. We don't have high utilization of downtown behind Village Hall, although it's starting to grow a little bit. So the thought is perhaps we should make pricing kind of like demand pricing, as that, and then Congress Park is heavily used by non-residents, so maybe we should make that.
Well, I have a question about keeping it standard across all three, because sometimes you can take the express, and sometimes
Yeah.
you might want to take the Brookfield train station, depending on the train schedule and what you're doing in the evening. For example, the Congress Park station, you can only come home until 6:50 p.m. And if you're taking a later train or have something later in the evening, then you might park at the Brookfield stop that day. But then does that require you to have a completely different monthly or quarterly pass to be parking at the other station? Or because you've paid the higher price, you can also park elsewhere?
You heard
That's a
to
good
that,
point,
sure,
yeah.
maybe.
That's what we just said.
Oh, yeah, recommendation that, yeah.
It makes sense.
Yeah. What we would do is in the passport program. So when we roll out passport in a larger scale, we have to set zones, and those zones have pricing just like you have currently for daily. There's zone 51 or 52, and then zone 53 over at Congress Park. So we can work with, create a policy to develop, okay, you pay the higher price, you can go anywhere. We just gotta work with police and ensure how that works and how that's enforced, because we're building this system that typically is not through a mobile platform.
But for residents, where their price is not changing, is that what we're proposing here? Only the non-resident pricing is changing.
Different. It's
Both would
45.
change. So for the downtown station, that would stay the same as proposed at the workshop, and then for Congress Park and Hollywood, that rate would go up. But there is that distinction, and we can build a system in place through Passport that allows applicants to submit a proof of residency, and then staff can approve and ensure that. We wouldn't do that for daily, because just due to the quick nature of it, but we can build that in with no additional cost to what was proposed by Passport.
So under the current cost, there's no distinction between resident and non-resident?
No.
Okay.
Approximately how many spots are at Hollywood? Do you know how many parking spots are there?
There, I don't remember at the top of my head, but I believe there is, we have data that I can follow up with and get that number.
I'm wondering if you are able to even tell how many of those spots are currently utilized by students?
Almost all of them.
Mostly, yeah, but there's no way to find a true number because a monthly pass or quarterly pass is the same whether you're taking the Metro or not. There's no way for staff to get an exact number, but I can pull the numbers for.
Do we know how many trains stop there? There's not many trains that stop.
Right,
That's
so
not what
it
stops.
makes more sense for students to
They're
use
not
it.
right.
So I'm just wondering about maybe a student rate for that area. I was just looking up what they pay for the zoo south lot for the winter or the Rockefeller parking. And it looks like about $150 a year for the Rockefeller parking, and then $85 for the zoo south lot just for the winter. But when you think of some students, they have to leave, they leave school to go to work and do things like that. They wouldn't be the population I'd want to raise the rates on if that might be an option.
Yeah,
To keep something
I was going to
similar?
raise that point. I mean, for those of you that have not yet had kids go through Riverside Brookfield, parking is in great demand. There's basically a lottery system for the Rockefeller parking lot. And if you don't get that, the zoo lot is available during certain times, but seasonal they cut it off and you can't park there because it's their peak season and they, don't want to have spaces available for and as Trustee Guhuli pointed out, there's, so parking is in great demand, and I'm a little bit worried about, penalizing or adding costs to the students, because some of them are Brookfield residents, some of them are not, but we have a large segment in North Brookfield that goes to Riverside Brookfield High School, and then, and we could all talk about how we all walked to school when we were kids and walked 2 miles uphill in the snow and all that, but things are different, though, because a lot of these high school students are involved in after-school activities, sporting events, and things that they have to get themselves to. I mean, I've seen students walking to the Hollywood train station with their sports equipment to go to a sporting event after school. So I just asked the board to consider that, maybe there is a way to differentiate, but from what I'm hearing is that most of that parking at Hollywood may be RB student parking. But if there's a way to distinguish between that and commuter parking, maybe there's a distinction there. I just don't want to create too complex a system, though.
Maybe there's just designated parking spots.
Right now, in the data we have for Hollywood, we can't differentiate between who is a student and who is a commuter. We only offer the permit passing.
Right.
And we will issue it to a student or we will issue it to a commuter so long as you're paying the cost of the permit.
So could we designate, we're just saying, could we designate spots for
Yeah,
students?
I'd be a little concerned that like 100% of the spaces are taken up by students and no
Right.
commuters can park there.
Yeah, is there
at all.
a
Nice if
problem
there's a balance.
with commuter parking at Hollywood? Does anyone use commuter parking at Hollywood?
I'm sure somebody does.
It's
Again, we can't distinguish
you don't know.
between who is a student and who is a commuter. I would doubt that 100% is one or the other. I'm
Right.
sure there's a mix there. I couldn't tell you what the percentage is.
And I realize we can't at this point, but is there a way to create a Hollywood student, Riverside Brookfield student pass that has a different rate than and you'd have to show proof of student ID or something like that? I don't want to create too complex a system, but
Like in the passport app.
right. Something,
Yeah, I mean,
Discounted
if
rate.
we're already doing it, that you have to show proof of residency, is there a way to show proof of RB
Student
student
rate.
ID?
Right.
If consensus from the board is a different rate for students, we can look into how that would work within the passport system. Staff would not recommend a different student rate to that resident commuter rate that's already there.
I guess I'm still feel like it's a communication education issue about having different rates at different train stations within Brookfield in the passport. I get that there's the one with higher utilization, we should pay more, but I think it'll be confusing. We'll have to explain it a lot.
I think Congress
That
Park
you
makes
paid
sense.
extra and you can park wherever.
I think Congress Park makes sense. I don't understand why Hollywood. For a commuter, no one's really going to Hollywood
I agree.
because it's more convenient.
But I think there's two
Unless they
different
live there.
issues.
Any data support. Right now, we don't know. It's an unknown.
Right.
The parking
Right, but it's-
utilization is higher at Hollywood than it is at downtown. That's why staff is suggesting a higher rate.
Somebody's parking.
Yes.
Somebody's parking there, we're not exactly.
They are, we
sure who.
can see
We have
them
some
after
empir-
school every
we have
day, there's a lot
empirical
of
evidence
students.
what schools
Yeah.
are.
But I mean, I think that just to narrow it, there's a couple different issues. I mean, there's the issue of Trustee Kaluzny raised that having different zone rates for different stations and then explaining to people that, well, if you have the most expensive, if you have the Congress Park or the Hollywood, you could park anywhere. I mean, that's doable, but it has to be explained, and I think that would be a fair result. If you buy the most expensive, you could obviously park, so that permit would have to be, and I don't know if that's any enforcement issue, how the stickers would be different. And then there's the issue of, do you create different rates for Hollywood and students? Those are two separate issues. But, I mean, to Trustee Kaluzny's concern of, can we, with staff's recommendation, I think there'd have to be some explanation that if you buy the Congress Park pass, you could park at any of the lesser costing, locations at any time and getting that word out there. But if you buy the Prairie Avenue, the main train station, you can't park in the more expensive ones. That's gonna have to be explained.
As an alternative to the initial consideration for a higher cost permit for Congress Park, Brookfield downtown Metra, wouldn't you then just purchase a daily for $3?
I wouldn't go behind, I mean, if I had the monthly pass, the convenience is parking in those diagonal spots right by the train versus walking.
So NOAA does have further recommendations in the downtown area that might help alleviate that, because there is some daily identified within that downtown. So if you were a permit monthly or quarterly outside of that, you could still purchase a daily that's within closer proximity to the.
And I'm the guy that doesn't take trains downtown and stuff like this in commuter, but I mean, I think if you're buying a monthly commuter pass and then you have a month where, well, I gotta buy this many daily passes on top of it, I don't know.
Yeah,
I would,
Yeah, I don't know how commuter.
I just feel like for a resident perspective, keeping it the same between all three could make the most sense, because you live here and you can pay to park at any of the train stations, but make it more expensive for a non-resident to park in the express station if we're looking to reduce that.
I get that perspective. I guess I look at it from commuters will probably do the same thing every day. And so they're going to, wherever they park, they're gonna know that system like you do very well. You know exactly how Congress Park
I know where
works,
my
where to
van
park,
goes.
how to perhaps gain the most advantage of, that's what people do. And so I guess I hadn't thought about, you raised a legitimate point. Well, what if there's no spot for a monthly permit at Congress Park? That's a good point. But I would think, aren't most commuters typically doing the same thing every day?
no,
No.
not anymore. Like, cause.
I used to.
I mean, there's data, if you look at the rail data, like, it's much higher on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday than it is on Monday and Friday. It's even weather-based. So on really hot days or really cold days, people choose to work from home, people who have that flexibility. Oftentimes people, and I do this, you often take the train in the middle of the day if you have an afternoon meeting, so you're no longer on the set. Many people are no longer on a set 9 to 5 schedule Monday through Friday. That being said, I do support the variable pricing structure, because I do think we should incentivize people to use the parking that's less utilized. And I think we could handle the education aspect at the point of purchase. When you're buying the monthly permit, you choose your option, and when you choose your option, you clearly explain where that makes it eligible for you to park. And so I think the idea of if you pay the higher rate, you can park anywhere. If you pay the lower rate, you can only park at the Brookfield downtown, is the most logical approach.
And could that be like, to a QR code, you come in, however you get your permit, we also give you a QR code that will just tie into it. If you pay the most, here's the places you can park if you pay the highest amount.
Yeah.
With the map or whatever. You pay the lowest amount, here's the places you can park, which are less common. I think that would be a fairly simple.
And to Stevie's point too, though, if you wanna change that up, you can just go buy a daily at any of the
Yep.
lots, right?
Well,
Or
Hollywood
that
doesn't
that
have,
allow it.
yeah, Hollywood's only doesn't allow daily, but Congress Park and downtown do.
we have lots of other slides for some of these other scenarios.
All right,
Okay,
go
thank
ahead.
you.
Thanks.
Okay. So, this table is showing the towns that we compared ourselves to in terms of number of lots as well as number of parking spaces. Metra has GIS math you can utilize, figure out how many spaces are at each station. So Brookfield is comparable to Western Springs and West Chicago in terms of number of parking spaces available. So we are very comparable to surrounding communities. Now moving on to Congress Park. So this has been a months-long initiative by myself. So since I've started, schedules have changed. The biggest change that I've just learned in the past week is that the BNSF service was amended to remove the amount of outbound trains running express that go to Congress Park from 6 to 3. Some context for those who are not familiar. The Congress Park station is only one of 4 on the entire line that has some express service that arrives or departs that station, which makes it a destination for the local area. We see on a day-to-day basis, we have staff can log in to Passport, and see how many daily parkers we have at Congress Park. And it's a lot. It's more times than not more than those who are parking monthly, as well as just those parking daily at our downtown lot behind our village hall. What's interesting about Congress Park is the current lot that is used for daily was for Moose Lodge lot, and with the development at Congress Park, that would subject that space to no longer be utilized for daily parking, which raises the question, where do they go? Currently, parking regulations, which we will display on a map with color coding and a key, show that there's no other space for daily parkers to park. If you're looking at the 4,000 block of Dubois, that's restricted for B permit. On the south side of Burlington, that is all B permit. And for those not aware, B permit is assigned to residents not available for purchase for specific blocks that are typically located in a commercial area or a train station. And then on the north side of Burlington, you have the easternmost portion of the street dedicated to B permit, and your westernmost portion dedicated to monthly and quarterly. And we do not allow those to daily to park in monthly.
Wait, can you go back? Was that 7 and 3? Is that correct? The number of express trains in the afternoons is only 3?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that changed recently, and that's from that time surge. There might be one train.
Is that only outbound? Or
Yeah.
only inbound, I mean?
So for inbound, so this is the traditional going to the city, coming back home to the suburbs. So there's 7 trains that will go from Congress Park and go straight to Union Station.
Right.
In the afternoon, it's the trains that go from Union Station and go directly to Congress Park. So
I think
there
it
is no
must be more than
reverse.
3, because
I think there's
there's a
more than that, but I
3:35.
think that's okay.
Yeah.
Like
that's okay.
there's.
It was amended like within the past week, and I double checked the schedule because there was 6 as of a few weeks ago, but they changed it. But-
I said the
As
same,
of
I said the
December
same thing. It makes 0 sense to me, but it just changed on December 4th. And then you got this information directly from Metra.
I
For
better
these-
look before I go downtown tomorrow.
Yeah, seriously.
And Noah, just, again, there are no, after these time parameters, either on the afternoon, either before 4:05, no express trains outbound, and after 6:35, no express. You just said there might be a 4th, but
There might be one before 4:05, but I'm looking at the typical 9 to 5 commuter and what that time frame looks like. But it's not. It's maybe one more.
There are two. There are
There's a
two
3:35.
before 4:05. There's a 3:35 and a 3:05 that are both express.
since December 4th. Have you
As
done
of
that-
today,
Have you done
yeah.
that recently? Or you did
Yeah,
that
yeah.
today?
So, but
It's
you're
a
looking at the
3:35.
4:05 window. You're in my wheelhouse.
Well, but
now.
to your point, maybe we have to stop doing that because that's a little bit of the
Yes.
old school mentality that it's, 9 to 5, it's 5 o'clock, now everybody leaves. Well,
I agree.
Your
Yes.
point is it's more fluid than that, so maybe we
Yes.
have to
Yeah.
expand.
That being said, though, in the middle of the day, there's no train stopping at Congress
Right.
Park.
At
So
all.
with this station, you should continue to focus on the rush hour because in the evenings and during the middle of the day, no trains are stopping there at all. But it should be a little larger, the window.
Okay, I got it. There we go. Okay. Now we're looking at the police data. So back in August, police came by and did some counting for us and found out that the utilization of the north side of Burlington was very minimal. Only one car was parked when they surveyed the area. That was for one commuter, which was a monthly or quarterly, and 14 residents parked on the south side of Burlington using their B permit, which is included in their annual vehicle sticker.
So define B permits.
Yeah, and then B permit, that's only for residents, you cannot purchase it, and it's only assigned to specific blocks that are near a train station or a commercial corridor.
I can just, from anecdotal, like, I remember before COVID, that all the spaces on the north side of Burlington were filled, like with the monthly commuters, and people were walking from way down the street, which was kind of hard because there's no sidewalk on that side of the street.
Yeah.
They're walking in the street to get down to the train, but since that smaller lot was added, that's a monthly, and the commuting times have changed, so more people are doing the daily, and I rarely see cars
Yeah,
parked,
never seen.
like you said,
Yeah.
with the numbers there. But before COVID, it was full.
Well, it may be full again if and when we get development on that,
Mhm.
Yeah.
on that site.
So looking at daily, actually, I should go back. So although these numbers are low for the north side for Commuter, as what Trustee Klusny had mentioned, there is utilization of that lot, which was built and completed in 2024, and that hosts 23 spots. One of them is handicapped, and that's used. Police data shows approximately 90 to 100 cars use that lot per week. Focusing now on daily parking, currently in that lot used for daily, that's 58 total spaces. The average is 39, with the highest number used of daily parking, 81. And that does not mean that 81 people are parking all at once, but people can come in and out as people's behavior changes for work days. That it can fluctuate, and just. Circling back to the Congress Park development, with if and any development comes, that would have to be relocated, though the monthly quarterly parking lot that was installed last year will stay as part of our grant agreement. So that is not impacted by any development at that site. So just a visual cue, this is what it currently looks like at Congress Park. Yellow is for monthly and quarterly. As you can see, there's a stretch of it on Burlington on the north side, and B permit parking in that residential is utilizes most of the north side and all of the south side, and there's a stretch of B permit on the 4,000 block of Dubois. And just for context, on the west side, so the left side of where the red is highlighting the parking on Dubois, that is village-owned property, which would be set for a future development. So the first proposal, the specific to Congress Park, would be to reclassify daily parking. So we are not, the lot will stay as it is until we get to a point where the development is making ground. So this would allow currently a chance for overfill, that in case that lot does get filled up, that people can park fairly close on Dubois, which currently was not utilized, and park on the north side of Burlington if so need be. Due to the number of B permit parking on the south side, we recommend to keep that as it is. And even though 90 to 100 cars park in that northern lot, there's still empty spaces. So we've seen that there's only a handful, one in that week, who had a monthly or quarterly pass park on the lot. We can, with a certain amount of certainty, fill that lot and not have a problem with it being overcrowded. But the demand in that lot at that station is primarily daily. So that's what we want to emphasize our focus in and utilize what we have.
Can I ask a question, Noah?
Yeah.
On that previous one, would people that have a monthly or quarterly permit, is it possible they could also park where it's daily? Or is it only daily? So I like this proposal, but I see again, like if we get more people buying the monthly or quarterly, then the place that they're able to park is pretty small compared to the other.
Yeah.
So similar to the other, if you're paying more, can you park wherever?
Yeah, that's definitely an option. We just want to give that.
What about now?
Right now, you can't. we designate specific areas so there's no mingling of the two or three parking types. But obviously, we can consider making at least some portion of that monthly and daily. We just wanted to give more flexibility, but definitely want to find that right balance.
I mean,
So,
one option would be to make all the parking accessible to both monthly and daily, and not rather than separating it, because I'm not sure how confident we are that we're getting utilization out of the current monthly lot, but generally, numbers are way down for communities in terms of people purchasing monthly and quarterly passes, because commuter habits have changed, right? Fewer people are going 5 days a week. So if we have more daily purchasers, should we even open up that front lot to daily purchasers? I understand that would raise the concern, are we blocking out monthly users? But I mean, I don't know if we have data in terms of how throughout the day is that lot being used? Is it filled up by monthly and quarterly users?
It's never at capacity. There's I've been there during the middle of the day, and I've been there. There's about 5 to 7 approximate spaces available, and that's just the days that I'm there. So it's not filled to capacity. Where I've had calls to me from residents or those who are using the station saying, I have a daily, I don't have a monthly pass. I can't park anywhere else. Where do I go? So there's more concern of a parking crunch when it comes to daily than it is monthly.
At this lot in particular.
Specifically to Congress Park, correct? Yeah.
But right now, there's no savings between accumulation of dailies to monthly.
I'm sorry.
Right now, the pricing structure, there's no difference between, there's no cost savings, there's no motivation, there's no incentive to purchase one versus the other.
There's no motivation to buy a monthly or a quarterly with the current pricing. There is a incentive to buy monthly compared to a daily if you're going more times in a month. But with the updated, there would be an incentive. But it's a current 2025
That's what I'm
structure.
thinking with the updated pricing that you're gonna present in a minute, that you're gonna have more people that might choose the monthly because it makes more sense, but then there's less places that they can park unless you can park anywhere if you have the monthly. Right? Is
Yeah,
that-
there would be incentive, yeah. Also incentive for quarterly as we make that cheaper
Mhm.
per month,
Mhm.
which it doesn't exist currently.
Okay, thanks.
Now moving on to the more colorful half of our downtown. It's a little hard to tell, but Javier mentioned this earlier, there is some specific parking, the little shoehorn just below the 6, that is your drop-off only, and there's 15-minute parking. Burlington makes kind of a weird to divot out where people can go, drop off riders and proceed onward. Currently, what separates the 8900 blocks of Burlington and Brookfield, which is where lots 1 and 2 are, would be the allowance of employee. We circled back at the previous KLOA presentation, and currently that's where employees are encouraged to park. In Burlington, that is only for monthly and quarterly on the western portion of that. The green indicates 2-hour parking. There's some B permit just east of Kiwanis, and your daily is solely, as of right now, exclusively behind Village Hall. So Proposal 2 has 2 options. The first one is to keep commuter parking at the 8900 block of Brookfield. This site where Lot 1 is subject to potential development at the Triangle site, and this creates a unique parking situation where, depending on what is built there, what commercial, that there might be more people desiring to go there in the mornings. Current hourly restrictions would prevent them from using most of those spaces until after 2 o'clock. There's a proposal on that later in this presentation. Though monthly quarterly permit parking is the lease utilized at the downtown station. And because of that, we want to give a little more flexibility to our daily and use some parking that isn't used in front of Village Hall on Brookfield. So we keep the daily parking behind Village Hall, but give options closer to the station for people to park, so they're not stuck walking the length of our parking lot. So option one is focused on keeping lot number one the exact same. So 2-hour parking does exist in the yellow, but it's after the commuter hours conclude.
And right now, there's virtually, and I'm sure you all know this, there's virtually nobody that parks on any day of the week on this entire stretch here. And if you look out in front of Village Hall on Brookfield Avenue, there's virtually never anybody parking along all of these spots here, which really could be prime parking for somebody, but they sit there unused, as well as the spots on the north side of Burlington. Noah's data shows virtually nobody ever parks there.
Yeah.
Except for certain days of the week, like the farmer's market, that's full by Village Hall, and then the other one with the sheriff food.
Special events, we have
Special
concerts on
events for
Grand,
sure.
this is packed, but I'm
Not for
saying on a
commuting.
typical weekday.
Right.
So are you saying that the green, that's like after commuter time?
That
Is the green 2-hour parking all the time?
Yes.
Yes.
2
Right.
hours, yeah.
Yeah, there is no stipulation over commuter hours, though parking does exist in the yellow once the commuter hours are done for the day.
Are these proposals consistent with KLOA's recommendations?
Some of these recommendations are tying into option 2. There is mention towards the end of the presentation to designate more of these spaces at Lot 1 as 2-hour parking. When you think of what could happen at the Triangle site and previous staff presentations on the development there, that at its peak you could bring in 60 guests to that site. So we have a high utilization of our parking on Grand, and that is the closest lot of parking to the downtown of such a stretch. So the option 2 for this proposal would be to get rid of monthly and quarterly there, consolidate that east of Kiwanis Park, and make that 2-hour parking. So no matter what opens there or when guests want to visit, there's flexible parking for residents and patrons and guests. So that's the benefit there, is to reclassify space that is currently underutilized, and transit ridership has become fairly stable post-COVID, about 67% ridership recovery from COVID. So we believe that could be an option. So you want to see what the board is interested in, and go back to option 1, which is you keep it as status quo, and those hours for commuter will be discussed in the 4th proposal, or getting rid of that entirely and just keeping the monthly and quarterly.
No, can I ask, because I
Yes.
mean, because I'm trying to figure this out in terms of, we've talked about potential development at Congress Park, we've talked about, hopefully the Triangle site's developing. Is there a desire to implement, to choose a recommendation tonight, basically? Is that needed tonight to choose a recommendation?
No.
Well, but I mean, because I guess I'm looking at, I read this ahead of time, and I'm looking at it as the guy who doesn't take commuter trains. I'm wondering if, a subcommittee of the board could vet this a little bit, possibly people that are involved in transportation and commuter lots and stuff could maybe, vet this or bring back some recommendation. The whole board's gonna have to make a decision, but
To answer your question, there is no time issue here, like, it's not like we gotta do this tomorrow, or there's no.
no, but I know Noah spent a time, I'm just throwing it out to the board. Do we wanna continue to go through this tonight and try and build a consensus, or, obviously I'm leaning towards if you're open to, if it was just a 2 member committee of the board, it wouldn't be Open Meetings Act issue, they could meet.
Two can meet.
Two, if it's three, they would be Open Meetings Act issues. I mean, I'm truly looking for direction to the board. Do you want to continue with the committee of the whole discussion as the whole board on the thing, or would you like some recommendation coming back from a subcommittee of the board, which could be two members meeting with staff that's not subject to the Open Meetings Act? And we're not trying to hide anything, it's all gonna come back in front of the board in open meetings, or would you like a larger group? I mean, I'm
I have a couple questions before I answer that of like, what are the decisions that need to get made? And maybe can we review that really quick? Like, how many options are we choosing between?
well, there's four, I mean,
So
There's the
changes
pricing, and then
in
there's-
each area.
Mhm.
So at minimum, six choices, both in
choices.
fee and, restructure.
Okay.
so now there's.
So not many.
Or some combination thereof, I mean, change, I mean, and again,
I mean, I think everyone should still hear what the options.
I agree, and I mean, I think,
Yes, I think maybe that would be a good choice.
just to continue with the discussion now, but then, I mean, try and get decision at the end of tonight, or,
I think it's,
We can talk through the options.
yeah,
Sure.
I think I'd like to hear the rest of them and see how hard of a decision it is.
okay, that's fine, just,
Zip through an explanation.
Yeah,
Can I just, going back to that one, can I just mention that?
Yes.
On the Triangle property, and Libby just left. I believe with the plan development agreement that was discussed, we had discussed leasing some of those parking spaces in Area 1 for that Triangle site, because they weren't intending to have enough parking on
About 15
that
parking
property.
spots, right.
So if we go to just a 2-hour parking model in that area, we're looking at adding a lot of residences to that space that then don't have parking. And I mean, the plan development has been vetted throughout the committees, and the discussion was that, or the direction was that it was desired to have some of that parking be.
And that's still
leased.
feasible with the proposed changes. You
Even
would
though, I
just,
mean, with
once
this,
that
even though it's
development
2
is
hour.
complete, designate any approved spots via signage for that living.
This-
Yeah, we would have
It
to
would
develop some
override
type
it,
of permit
basically.
system for, we have to allow overnight parking, so if there's residents that are gonna park
Sure.
there overnight, obviously, we have to give them an overnight parking permit, and B, we have to, it'll have to be some type of designated permit system that'll allow them to park over 2 hours during the day and overnight during the day.
Yeah, I guess I just wanna make sure that we're
Yes.
remembering that and taking
And
that
we,
into
and we
account.
specifically, as Javier mentioned, we specifically reference that on the Triangle site as well as other sites in downtown.
so like, how many spaces are in the green area that's one? I mean, it was 15 your recollection, or is?
That's what
Tim-
Tim mentioned, I can't.
How many total spots?
No, that we're gonna be required.
15 of how
I
many
believe
would
it was
go to the?
15.
15, so
That
15
was
of,
the technical parking variation that will have to
Right.
be.
and how many approximately are in that stretch between?
It's 80-something.
I would say 70 to 80 based on
Still a
what,
lot.
it's a large
nice.
stretch, and in the recommendations here isn't contingent on a specific development. So to your point about the parking variation and where that goes, that definitely, is considered. It's more of a journalistic approach of how do we see future development. But no, absolutely, this is not a hard line approach to 2-hour parking in this entire stretch, but just to say this is what we intend this to be, and potentially removing one use for that.
We might wanna also consider that if we're sticking a 15 parking spaces specifically for that development in the middle of that stretch, it might dissuade people from using those spaces to go to those businesses, because once they hit those spaces, they're gonna say, oh, well, this is all reserved for that.
Because that plan development is in the future and we don't
Yep.
have a go live date Staff wanted to present a recommendation and find consensus to implement, enforce, and see how it is utilized while development is happening, so that we can better, once it comes to the decision of where are those 15 placed, west, east, middle, we'll have a better data collection of utilization in this corridor.
Sounds good.
To advise.
And I know we're not discussing options right now, but it would make sense to me to do option 2, because you're then
Yes.
getting commuters used to being not able to be in area 1 either way. Because if, whether that gets designated for residences in the future or the 2-hour parking, there's plenty of other spots where people could be parking. That's not the most desirable location to get to the train anyways.
And
There's,
the overall is in alignment with KLOA, just reassessing the utilization and how we're classifying in what areas. Small nuance, KLOA recommends a 4-hour within our downtown district. This clearly says 2-hour. That is, now that you've had the KLOA information and NOAA's information, that would be a consideration for a finalized decision as well.
there's no bigger fan than riding the train than me, but in general, I think this is an area where we should prioritize.
Noah might fight you on that.
Okay, Noah and I could battle,
He
but
really
in general, this is an area where I think we should prioritize parking availability for downtown and for the businesses. So to me, like option 2 is a much better option because of the improved access to the downtown businesses, and I think the commuter parking is still meeting the demand.
And just
in
knowing that it
option
is that all the time, and not be like, it's commuter sometimes and 2
But-
hours sometimes.
But again, because the monthly and quarterly numbers are so down, I wonder about just blending the daily and monthly. You purchase a monthly pass and you can park anywhere, not necessarily restricted just to the monthly location.
But is the 2-hour, is that gonna meet the business needs? I mean, as KOLA was recommending 4 hours and staff's recommending 2 hours. Am I reading that right, or?
In the summary, it says 3 hours.
2 hour is standard. KLOA presented some more justification and case studies of 4 hours in other communities. Now that you've heard that, we leave it up to you.
I think I'd like to see at least 3, but maybe 4.
I mean, just the anecdotal story of, okay, we're gonna go use a service and then maybe have lunch or something afterwards, or do this, or go shop and have lunch. I mean, typically you can't get that done in 2 hours, you know, or if you want them to stay.
I mean, I think most people are accustomed to 2-hour restrictions. That's what I'm more familiar with in surrounding communities. And in general, like incentivizing parking turnover is a good thing, right? So,
But if someone, like, for instance, someone goes to like Sebastian's to watch a Bears game, or Little Owl to watch a Bears game, the Bears game's 3 hours plus, the sporting event's 3 hours plus, and that type of thing. If you're gonna encourage them to be using these spaces, I don't know that 2 hours meets their needs, and, you know, go out and have to move your car or re-up or put another 2 hour, you know, so, I mean, those are,
We
again,
want people to come
to stay,
and
stay.
patronize walk from business to business and spend more time there.
Maybe there's 4, there's some 4, there's some 2. That's why I think this is, it's pretty complex.
yeah.
Hollywood?
We're almost done. Then you can decide what you want to do with it.
Hollywood, fortunately, is a little more straightforward. You have your B permit parking on the north side with a portion of business decal. To note, business decal, there's signage for that, but it's not currently something that we issue. And your yellow is your monthly and quarterly permit parking. So the proposal number 3 will be to get rid of the business decal signage and reconvert that to 2-hour parking. There is just as a current use, the drip coffee within the taco restaurant. Currently, with current commuter parking restrictions, there's no place for them to park legally to patronize the business. So that, as well as nearby businesses, would benefit from 2-hour parking designated that isn't intertwined with monthly or quarterly permanent parking. So just to give a little unique option for those businesses.
Have we considered a 15-minute parking spot in there at all? I know that there's the daycare that has been, I believe it's been approved, on the east end of that block. 15-minute parking might be useful for Drip Coffee, the taco place, the daycare, a spot like that.
Yeah, we can definitely designate that. We'll have to figure out actually how many spaces are there, and that's modeled in other parts of our commercial areas. But absolutely, those businesses would service and value a 15-minute drop off or.
And what's the
pickup.
what's the recommendation for the block with the pet store?
Urban Mud?
Urban Mud, yes, thank you. That block disappeared. If
That
you go back to the last slide.
is that is B permit.
Would it still be B permit?
There's residential nearby, so we didn't want to disrupt too much of that area just because of its heavy residential use in front of the other businesses. It's more commercial on the block where the taco store is.
So there are parking options for the people who want to drive to Urban Mud then?
That would be the use of the 2-hour parking that we were proposing,
But I don't see any.
Right now, I think they just have a few spots on the side street that people park at
Okay.
very infrequently, but there's a couple of spots that are out there.
Or people park on the yellow, across the street. I mean, it's monthly, but I don't know the hours.
Yeah, are
'Cause
those side streets B parking or no?
they would be.
I believe they are, because they're so close to the train station.
Mike says they are.
Yeah, so it doesn't feel to me like there's anywhere to legally park to go to the business that's on that corner.
Right now, there's not.
Yeah.
And that's something we definitely have to account for, so.
Yeah, these are businesses that we want to make sure that we're supporting, and they need to have places for people to feel
Yeah.
like they're not going to get ticketed if they.
Could there be some 2-hour
visit
parking in that yellow zone on the west
West of the-
side?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we
You know
can
what I'm
definitely
talking
consider that.
If Cooper and Kelly aren't listening, I was there buying Christmas presents the other day, and I did park in, where the cursor is, I did,
Watching online?
I did, those spaces, and on the side street, I thought the first couple spaces maybe were unrestricted, as you go north on, I believe there's at least 3-4 cars, I thought that could park along there. I didn't think they were restricted, but,
Worth checking. I usually park there when I go there, right where the cursor's at.
yeah.
Up there, yeah.
So, but I mean, Trustee Hendricks, we do have to account for that and make sure we don't have a situation where we're hamstringing that business, so.
Yeah, I appreciate the proposal, definitely. I think we just need to expand it a little with the 2-hour parking.
And then our last proposal would be to unify and amend commuter parking hours across the village. So current ordinance states that commuter parking hours on Burlington go from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., while on Brookfield Avenue, they go from 5:30 a.m. to 2 p.m. So staff recommends to unify and create one from 5:30 a.m. to 11 a.m., which allows a good majority of commuters to claim their space and get to work, while also benefiting our downtown and other commercial districts across the train tracks. So that people are not waiting until 2 p.m. or 7 p.m. to park in a space, and just allows us to better utilize the fast parking we have.
So it frees up parking for lunch, by 11 a.m., any commuters, at least we hope, or if past patterns hold, most commuters are there by 11. And so there's no reason to be reserving these spots for commuters that aren't gonna come, that aren't coming right now, and open them up at 11 o'clock so that businesses can advertise for lunch.
Commuters can still park there until they're trains
Oh,
get back.
they just
Yes.
have to get
Yeah,
there.
it- yeah,
Okay.
They just,
Got
it
it.
loses its
Exclusiveness.
exclusivity
Right.
as of 11.
Kyle, does that match your experience? I mean, is there people, you said like afternoon meetings and stuff?
Tim is predicting my. Well, I don't think it's a concern here because you're like Trustee Kaluzny just said. You're losing the exclusivity, but they can still park there. There are times when I commute at 12:30 in the afternoon, but I think we have enough parking to still accommodate me in that scenario. Not me. It's not about me. I'm talking about.
It's all about you, President.
I don't even park here, okay?
Yeah,
I'm
where's
just
your
saying, your average commuter.
No,
That's
as somebody
true.
said,
I
I think,
walk. I don't park anywhere.
as somebody said, like, we're making assessments and making recommendations based on what we know.
Sure.
What's out there now. We know exactly what you guys are all saying. Things are gonna change and dynamic, that's why it's gotta be a fluid process, and that's why I asked, how, maybe we don't have to hire a KLOA, but if something changes, like a new business comes in, new development comes in, clearly, that's gonna change the dynamics, and at some point in time, hopefully in the not too distant future, we need to really look closely at all of these things and see how they're interplaying with each other. But I don't know when the last time the village has looked at this, but it makes no sense to me why you have such divergent, just in the commuter parking allowable hours, why it's so different from street to street. It just doesn't make any logical sense right now.
And again, I think the general principle, we want to open up more of the current commuter spots near the downtown area to shoppers and visitors to downtown, and this is consistent with that goal.
Well, let's blame the consultant if there's no,
Well,
if commuters start squawking.
So they won't.
It's KLOA's fault.
Love proposal 4.
That is my presentation. If you have any additional questions, I'm more than happy to answer.
No, great presentation. I know how much time and effort is put into this, and that's why I want to dedicate enough time and effort into it from us. Again, I throw it out to the board. What do you want, do you want to keep going, talk about this tonight, try and narrow down all the proposals? Do you want to bring it back for another committee of the whole in front of all of us? Do you want me to appoint a subcommittee to come back with some recommendations? And it's a 2 or 3 member committee. I'm at your mercy, whatever you want. Keep going, who wants to keep going tonight? That's what I thought. Who wants to bring it back as another committee of the whole, which is fine if we all want to talk about it? Or does someone favor the idea of doing a subcommittee that, I want to move on this, because it's always going to be a snapshot in time. Things are going to change. We can't put it off forever because with some developments might come at Congress Park. Noah's put a lot of time in this. We should make changes going forward, but
don't-
subcommittee, full committee.
I don't mind doing a subcommittee, but I think it is good for us to take what we've all heard, talked about tonight, and then go talk to some of our residents and see if there's any other input out there that might help us.
And I mean, eventually it's gonna come, if we do the subcommittee, it's gonna come back, the subcommittee's gonna come back to all of us, and then we're gonna talk about it, and, you'll
Vote.
that type of thing.
I mean,
So-
if you want some more subcommittee board discussion, I'm happy to volunteer. But also there's some time between now and the next village board meeting, and so there's time to have a couple conversations. I don't think it needs to be a drawn out
Right.
thing.
That's what I'm
It could be
trying-
before the next committee of the whole, we have a couple conversations, if it's helpful. I
If,
have some more questions about how the
if
task
there,
force
are you
works.
saying if there is a subcommittee, or if there is just the board as a whole, just
Either one, I just feel like there's enough time
I know, and
to
that's,
have conversations.
because our next board meeting is the second Monday in January, the 12th of, and do I recall someone, Julie, you're not gonna be here, is someone not gonna be here at the first meeting in January, or someone? No, Mike won't be, okay, there was someone, so, again, someone make us, do you wanna bring back as a committee of the whole again on the 12th? You want me to appoint a subcommittee? All right, you're no help.
I don't know if it needs to be a subcommittee. I'm happy to go have a further conversation with staff.
I thought there were good ideas brought up tonight by some of the trustees. I think if they get incorporated, I
Okay.
think it can just come back to another committee
All
of
right.
the whole.
Yeah. I
Bring
think
it back
so
on the
too.
12th,
Provide
at the meeting on the
feedback
12th,
too,
just-
and then we'll go from there.
I'll stop asking questions
Next
today.
committee of the whole.
Let's
The
do
next
that.
committee, because I mean, the presentation, and I wanted to give it its full, time, it is 10 o'clock, we still have an executive session, as I remind you, but I just don't know, I don't think how it's gonna be productive to keep going forward at this right now, so let's bring it back at the 12th.
Okay.
Noah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank
I
you,
wonder,
Noah.
sorry, while we have, our parking expert here, if he has any additional thoughts on the conversation that we just had. We may as well utilize you while you're here.
He's like,
If you want me to, that's fine. I agree with, I think it was option 2, which is very similar to what I came up with. But I have to agree with the president, and this is anecdotal based on what I have heard from other villages, and I know you mentioned it. 2, 3, 4 hours. 2 seems a little bit too tight to entice people to stay in town and visit or patronize all the other businesses. Maybe you have a good point. Maybe 3 hour is the sweet spot in which we don't go over, we don't go under. So that's something that, again, the village, you guys will have to discuss, but I do lean towards the 4 hour. I'm not saying you have to do whatever I say, but I wanted to share why I'm leaning towards the 4 hour, In the end, you guys can make that decision if it's 4, 3, or 2, so.
Thank you.
I just back that up and say, I think that's interesting. I'm just thinking myself, of when I had to stay in LaGrange for a while our house was getting ready. If I could find a 3-hour spot, I was thrilled. Not having to go out and move my car every 2 hours because I was working from there. It was very, very frustrating. But those 3 and 4 hour spots were like gold.
Okay, let's put it up on the 12th. Noah, thank you so much, and, I think trustee Hooley's, we will get public input, public comment, we'll think about it more over the next couple of weeks and just match it to our experience, so.
Yep.
Okay, thank you, everyone. All right, that's the last item we had for discussion of regular business. I will once again open up public comment. Anyone on this side have any public comment? Anyone on this side have public comment? Anybody down the middle have public comment? You're standing in the middle, Brian, so I had to do that. So, all right, there being no public comment, I'd entertain a motion to go into executive session. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Entertain a motion to go into executive session at 9:57 PM pursuant to Section 2C6 of the Open Meetings Act to discuss the setting of a price for sale or lease of property owned by the public body.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is made by trustee Kaluzny, second by trustee Gahuli. Roll call, please.
Trustee Ketchmark.
Aye.
Trustee Whitehead.
Aye.
Trustee Hendricks.
Aye.
Trustee Naramatsu.
Aye.
Trustee Gilhooly.
Aye.
Trustee Kaluzny.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, we're adjourned into executive session at 9:57 PM. We're going to conduct the executive session in this room, so I ask anybody not participating in the executive session to leave the room.